Welcome back to Panel Day Superheroes Ahoy. My name is Tushar. Today we'll be talking about few books I pulled up from my shelf. So one is Battling Boy by Paul Pope, and then related to this, I rather pulled out another book, Heavy Liquid. I think this is Heavy Liquid 2. Yeah, so this is Heavy Liquid 2. So before I get started with the books, I'll just speak about Paul Pope a bit. So you might have heard of Paul Pope in context of some popular books like Batman Year 100. So he has been pretty much around the scene, I think, from last 20 years or so, and he's someone who is who takes is not essentially just limited to comic books. He calls I think he's an artist, not I think, I mean he's definitely an artist, and he falls more within the realm or zone of high art. So he's been someone who has been working in some of the fashion labels. Also, he has an understanding of different art aesthetics. Uh, he is mostly he's delved in expressionistic art, if that's a thing. So I mean, from the limited stuff I have read from him, I would say he is a very representational artist in terms of he is essentially a medium and he is bringing in all of his influences. So I saw an interview of his. I'll probably leave the link where he was talking about uh, studying the Native American features or anatomy, and bringing in those faces. So there's another book by him called 100%. That's also popular. So quite a lot of books, and Battling Boy I think I had bought probably 5 or 6 years ago, and this is on first second publisher. And about this book, Heavy Liquid, I had always heard of it, and I think in 2020 it completed the 20th anniversary, and it's not something that is frequently available in India. It's not available very freely. I checked Amazon and Flipkart, and again, I don't know, this is not something that you would want to read like a digital version. So speaking about Heavy Liquid as such, I mean, this just it just can't be like summed up in a short review. It's something to soak in and absorb. But then, having said that, you see that, like, this aesthetic, like the fashion aesthetic, he's talking about like animetro cubist mask of the character. So it's very I would say it peeps inwards of its own universe. So Heavy Liquid, you see here the Jagger. So the artist clearly has an understanding of the industry. He is often reflective of it. He's paranoid, and that's like all great artists. He brings all those elements into his art. So Heavy Liquid is known to be cyberpunk meet sci-fi, meet noir kind of a project or a book. I would think of it as something like, yeah, obviously the punk aesthetic is very much pronounced, but I would think of it as something uh, like an art noir, if you can call it that. Uh, his art style, people often say that there is a lot of influences. It's expressionistic, is it's sometimes on purpose drawn very, you know uh, grungy and dystopian, and there is also like a lot of variable or varying brushwork there. But I would say, I mean, just comparing and having read these two books recently, I would say, uh, strangely, like Heavy Liquid looks much more clean compared to, I have read Batman Year 100, and it becomes much more cluttered and dirty as you move on. So yeah, I'm not sure if it's just the lettering or the panel flow, but he obviously has a lot of inspirations like from European kind of comic books. You'd see a bit of Mobius in there too. People have spoken about the effect of Alan Moore, although in his kind of voiceover work and his writing as such, I see more of Frank Miller, because in terms of that cool noir, like a Alan Delon kind of protagonist, that's where I see more of like, like a very dark take on the urban aesthetic. So, lot of things, lot of influences. You would see influences of classic detective books from Raymond Chandler, like even the protagonist who's called S here would remind you of a Philip Marlowe left in the world of like reminds me of the long goodbye. So essentially, heavy liquid deals with all those themes of kind of a lazy protagonist detective. He's barely able to manage the investigation or the procedurals, and then there is this substance which is both a drug and uh, I think an ammunition. He's in search of a sculptor, and then there are these robots, and there's this also the paranoia about establishment and often motives of capitalism in there also, and yeah, so all these elements are there, and then he's in search of a sculptor who would then mold the heavy liquid material into something. So he's up against many different things in this book. So heavy liquid, it's a classic, and I think it's an essential read. So even if you see this teaser, it's kind of quite funny and tongue in cheek. So again, if I ever find like an anniversary edition, I would try to get heavy liquid. It's not something that can just be interpreted very quickly. It's something to have in your collection. I think such kind of high art deserves to be in the collection. Coming to Paul Pope, Battling Boy. So this book is relatively lighter. This is like something he wanted to create for the young adult audience, but it's not childish as with all the books. I think most books in the first second you would see motifs that are there that would appeal to all ages. So this is like I think it appeals to all ages, but then it can get fairly dark. So I wouldn't essentially recommend it for kids. Um, what are the themes uh, in this book is about a young god. There is a Thor-like god character in this, and then he disappears, and then the main superhero is called Haggard West, and this world is attacked by monsters, the world of Archopolis, and there's a I think the supervillain called Sedisto, and so this is pretty much the universe it works under. Pretty interesting, entertaining kind of universe, nothing that dark, and you would fairly recognize the kind of elements or tropes of the superhero universe in this, but everything is very I wouldn't say it's like a satire, but it's very Paul Pope. You would enjoy it. You would enjoy the different influences, references, and elements in here, and obviously you get some great art. And then there is the juxtaposition of like two characters of the next generation who have to bear with the expectations. It's kind of a coming of age of superheroes themselves, of teenage superheroes. So there is two more books that I think are prequels before this. So I think yeah, there's two books of Aurora West, which is the female character that you don't see more of. So here's what I was talking about, like the god character, and pretty much a lot of similarities to Thor. But Paul Pope is not here to, like justify what is a similarity, what's not. He just enjoys his world, and there's a great fashion aesthetic. So, for example, the battling boy hero, he has like a treasure chest of things that are left, for him to discover, and then he has this bunch of t-shirts, and each of them take the form or the powers of what's drawn on them. So there's a T-Rex, and it's pretty exciting and entertaining as well in the superhero aesthetic. But then it goes to different places also. There is a city element to it. There's a mayor, and this kind of a coming of age thing, like generation kind of. Having to face the burden of expectations. I thought of it, a lot of it reminded me of Invincible by Robert Kirkman, and also, uh, yeah, so you would be reminded of many books in which you see similar themes. Invincible is the one that comes to mind, but then I would say some of it, yeah, would also remind you of Kick-Ass. So this is Battling Boy. Um, yeah, so quite an exciting book. If you are looking for an entry point to Paul Pope, I would recommend Battling Boy. It's quite a good book to pick up, and I think it's also available in India. So you would get great art. And another thing I like is the size. It's not the conventional size of the comic book. Let me show you comparison, since we are talking about Frank Miller. So just the comparison with it. So smaller, not the standard size that you get the graphic novels in, and that's what happens with first, second. You get these smaller size books which really look nice in your collection, and easy to read as well. So that's about my take on Paul Pope's books, Heavy Liquid and Battling Boy. And yeah, that's pretty much about it. If I pick up more of Paul Pope, I'll certainly share it with you. And there's also another book on my reading list. I'll just tell you about it. So this is Omega the Unknown. It is by Jonathan Lethem, who's a famous writer, and I think Cavalier and Clay was another book by him, and the art and letters by Farrell Dalrymple. He was, I think, also behind the book The Wrenchies, again under first, second. So this is also a great book. I think I enjoyed it a lot, and I would like to revisit it pretty soon. So I'll get back to you with my thoughts on Omega the Unknown by Jonathan Lethem. As of now, I think this is about it from me. So signing off, and hope everyone is reading and enjoying their comic books. And thank you for liking the channel, and feel free to like the video and share with your friends and comic book lovers. That's about it. So thank you for watching Panel Days. See you in the next video.